Well, hello. I have a little friend here. Oh boy, how's it going? Thanks for joining. Josephine is here. She jumped, and then I had a funny surprise for you guys. Something to make you laugh. Thanks for joining on Facebook. I was able to fix the setting before the live stream. Who's here? Hey, say hi, Josie. You see my collar? Josephine has one, okay? So she's going to model it for you, okay? It's a Simon and me collar, okay? Crazy cat lady vibes, okay? We're matching. Hello. Hey, say hi, Negrita. You have your own collar too, right? So who's here first? I had to make you laugh. Oh my God. What kind of day have you all had? A good day. I've worn this. This right here is an heirloom. So I had to wear it for tonight, okay? So it's from my grandmom Stormy, piece of jewelry that I have inherited from her. And I've had it for years. I've really kept up with some of the jewelry that she gave, that I got when she passed, but it's a turtle. So it has tortoise. She had a lot of cool things. I'll tell you a little bit more about her, but I want to tell you a little bit about my experience. Let me see, okay? Give me some feedback first before I start. Let me know if you can hear things and if I'm looking at you. Remember I said I have to look, I think, right here. Does it look like I'm looking at you? Give me some feedback because I'm really needing to get this right. Okay, so who is here? 5 times 6, Molly. So that lets me know that all of it is good, even I'm looking right at you, Molly. Huh? Okay, welcome, Molly. Mercedes, oh my goodness, Mercedes, how are you? I've missed you. You've been good? It's been a minute. And everybody else, I will jump in and say hi. Okay, so hey, Manon. Manon is here. Hello, welcome from Quebec, right? Am I right? Montreal? Let me know if it's correct. I've spent a little time in Montreal when I was a little girl. Jamie was first. Welcome, Jamie. Hello, hello. And Juan is here. Welcome, Juan. Juan is saying hello, everyone. Couldn't miss this one. You have a picture of my favorite fighter, the brown bomber, Joe Louis. How about that? So that is your favorite fighter? Wow. That's super cool. Yes, I want to talk a little bit about Joe Louis, and I'll share my slides in a bit, but I want to welcome everybody on the Facebook feed and here. I have it on the backup channel and the main channel because I'm trying to build the other channel up. We'll talk about that at another time. But thank you for this Saturday, the 7th, right? The 7th. I have to look down at the date. Yes, it's Saturday. So a late conversation, right? Not so much a class. It's just a convo. And you all know that I talk a lot about the black boulet. Some people may wonder if you've never heard of, sorry, I'm trying to get to, I'll read something in a bit. So if you've not heard of the black boulet, you've heard me talk about it a little bit, even if you're new to the channel. I was born into a family that has that component, okay? And it's something that is of interest to me because growing up in such a group, you observe things, you hear and learn things, and you're conditioned, indoctrinated to go a certain path. And when you deviate from the path, you're not, what is the word? Somebody, I think it was Juan, you said a true black sheep. So you are a black, like the blackest sheep you could ever, like, in terms of how they say black. You're on the outside of the outside. And it's okay. It's not like, no, I'm not, oh, I'm so poor me. It's none of that. No self-pity. It's just history. And like I say, going back to the Genesis, to the beginning, is how we understand this ending, because this is an ending. Sorry to tell some of you all, just know that endings are not endings as we think. They are beginnings, especially if you're within the will. The will, it's all law, okay? So we'll talk more about law and things like that, of course. We're doing that. We're easing into it. And Odinga is back. Welcome. Let's welcome Odinga back. Thank you for joining. You must like us. We must have treated you well for your first time. I sure know we did. And that's how we are in the chatmosphere. So we're glad to have you back, Odinga. IG is here. Did you see Josephine? She has her own little collar. So maybe I can get a little, like I have a little pen for her too. So she'll wear, maybe I'll take a funny, crazy cat lady picture with Josephine's. You like that, Mish? Welcome, Mish. Nancy, hey. Baby isn't happy with you. No, she wasn't happy. She needs a little cat. Exactly. She's so funny. Oh, really? It reminded you, interesting that you would say ancient Egypt. Yes, because the aspect of Egypt, I played the music on my Instagram reel today when I, mentioned this live stream, and I played a tune that was something about coming out of Egypt. And that's really important. To me, it is, coming out of that mindset and that belief system, and just learning the things that we need to know, like just learning new things. It's exciting. Always being open to that. Hey, Lisa, it sounds good to you? Thank you. Okay. So I did remember correctly, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. When I came back from Cuba, I lived in Cuba for a bit, Manon. And when I sailed from Cuba, we sailed to Africa and then up to Montreal. So that's where we stopped off. And, that was the voyage. So that's why Montreal is always interesting. I have a good friend I grew up with that lives there. Hey, Jeff, welcome. How you doing this evening? Decatur, Alabama. Really? And Matthew, you came on by. Welcome. I always love to see you in the chat. Yeah, Nancy. Let's see. You said, hi, Jeff, I'm over next door in Huntsville. Wow, so we have a lot of Bamas. Alabama. Hey, Queenie. Welcome. Molly Moose. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you. Rather support you than cable TV. That's so nice. Thank you. I appreciate that, Molly. So sweet. So Raylene, hello, welcome. Northern California and the Sierras, beautiful. Love that area. One day I'll have to tell you about a trip I made up there with my uncle, my late uncle. Aurora, hello from Central Cali. Cold and wet here. I'm glad to be in class, so much to learn. Okay, well, it'll be really informal, not so much a class, but definitely, you may pick up some things. If you have any questions, just put them in there. I don't see it, just put it in there again. Sometimes I get in a zone and I just don't see the chat. Hey, John. Hey, welcome. Okay, so a lot of you know about this term, the Black Boulé. And the Black Boulé it's a group, a loose, I guess you could say a loose knit group and somewhat closely knit, and various circles and spheres under an umbrella. These are the secret, as they say, secret societies and brotherhoods and sisterhoods of the various, groups you've heard of, the Freemasons, the Eastern Stars, the Rosicrucians, what else? It's lots of them. Well, these groups have been the gatekeepers, and some more so than others. Now, the Black Boulé is a small group, and they are a group that, just like the other elite groups, they have certain characteristics. And when you are from a family that has this component to it, you tend to have a certain outlook. And for me, I've always been different and odd in my family. So a lot of you are the same, I'm sure. You're the odd one out. You don't go along with the programming as well, and you make people frustrated. So that was me. And in terms of this grouping, I wanted to talk about my godmother. All right. So that's you too, Mercedes. You're the black sheep of your family, way on the outside, the fringes. It's funny that even though I've been an outlier, a different, odd, whatever. They love to call people crazy, the conspiracy, whatever. But even though I was out of the group, I was somewhat in the group. I had friends and connections that, you would think that I was in the group. People have accused me in my family, just so you know. A lot of people in my family, and probably friend group as well, who knows? Because you never know what people think about you. It's none of your business, actually. But I told you once, I had a cousin lean in one day and just ask me, she's like, come on and tell me, you're CIA, right? And I'm like, really? Is this what you guys are? Is this the rumor going around the family that I'm CIA? Oh, really? Okay. So what can you do? I can't do anything about it. Whatever. People are going to think whatever they want to think. So because, some of us have a really different path and journey that is not understood by a lot of people. So they have to come up with a narrative to make it make sense to them. So that's something that, yeah, you might have thought it. If you have, I'm not offended. You could go ahead and tell me, because I've had more than one family member ask me if I was a CIA agent. Okay. And even though I told them I'm not, which I'm not, okay, I'm not, they don't believe me. So what are you going to do? Big Pontiac is here. Big Pontiac, welcome. Greetings, powerful people. I love that greeting. Welcome, Big Pontiac. Yes, nice to see you here. So You haven't missed much. I've been rambling. I ramble for a few minutes before I start in. So, okay, I want to share a little something about my godmother, the godmother. How many of you have godmothers? Do they still do that anymore? Let me know. Godmothers. I'll wait to see. How many of you have a godmother or a godfather? I have both, godmother and a godfather. Let me know. Hey, Nikki. Welcome, Nikki. Yes, Negrescence sheeps. I like it. I love it, love it, love it. Yes. You're both? You have both. Okay. IG, yours passed away in 2020. Okay. All right. Yeah, my godfather is still alive. My godmother passed away in 2019. I believe 2019. Yeah. So, yeah, Tina's here. Welcome, Tina. Nice to have you here. The Tippinator, you're back. You're CIA and I'm the love child of Elvis and Marilyn. Is that what they tell you, that you're the love? They have to make up stories, right? Why not? Let them have fun. What are you going to do? You had godparents that passed away while you were young. Yeah. Aurora, being Hispanic, you have many. Oh, okay, that's nice. So you have lots of people to look out for you. Yes. Hey, Camilla. Hello. Jen, IG says, Jen, I'm here because of your ranting. I wouldn't have it any other way. I know, right? The rants, they're so cuckoo. Yeah, so okay, so a few of you have, and Aurora has many godparents. So I have one set, a godmother, godfather, and I grew up with them in my life. So they took my godmother especially took her whatever responsibility very serious. So I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So my godmother, her I called her Aunt Jackie. All right, so that was my Auntie Jacqueline Barrow, last name Barrow. And the funny thing about my godmother, they had her like kind of set aside to marry my father. Okay, so here's a little bit of an interesting plot twist. So my godmother, they wanted, and when I say they, I mean that Boulé, okay, they wanted him to marry her. But my father wanted to marry my mother. Growing up in West Philly, he saw my mother, and she was one of those really like quiet girls. She worked hard, she was a middle child, not always a middle child. She was a baby, and then she had two younger siblings. So she was the kid that was shocked out of being the baby for a long time. So she became the middle child. But she was just a really good girl, just did everything she was supposed to do. And my grandparents didn't really have any bad reports other than they said she loved expensive clothes and she cried a lot. She was kind of a crybaby, but she was a really good girl, teenager, just a virtuous, wholesome, pure young lady. And my father was raised Catholic. So as a Catholic, he had a certain idea about the type of family, the type of wife he wanted. So he had a preference. You know how they talk about preferences? Okay, you'll see a little sort of a little theme, okay, little pattern. And these words are just recycled. They're talking about preferences now. And yes, the preferences were similar. So, okay, my dad wanted to marry my mother. So let me go into my godmother, who I don't know how that would work out. What's your thoughts? Hey, the Freedom Bohemian 1776. Let's welcome Kanita. Oh my goodness, Kanita, that's your name on. Yes, welcome. So glad to see you. I'm glad you caught us live. Let's welcome Kanita back into the chatmosphere. Remember, she hung out with us? Yes, it was fabulous. Can't wait to have you come back, and we're going to do the roundtable. We have to set that up. Yes. So anyway, my father, he went to Temple University in Philadelphia, and he was going to be a doctor. So he was a science background type of person. Plus, he was a basketball, basketball star, Philadelphia, through the Catholic high school system. So you can imagine what that was like. So he was a star, and he was going to get drafted to the Pistons, the Detroit Pistons. So he chose a different route. He wanted to be married, have a family, and he became a chemist. Okay, so he worked for the steel industry, and they moved after he went to Temple. He couldn't afford to continue. So, because his mother died when he was really young, and it's a long story there. I'll get into that another time. But he was in Temple. Then he finished up at Bethune-Cookman, which is in Florida, Daytona Beach. In fact, Kanita is a graduate of Bethune-Cookman. Shout out to Bethune-Cookman College. There's a lot of interesting history. That's another HBCU, Bethune-Cookman. And at the time, Eleanor Roosevelt was a good friend of Mary McLeod Bethune. And my father was like, Mary McLeod Bethune was very, she was, what do you want? I can't explain it, but you know what I'm talking about, do you? It's like she looked over my dad, he was a child that he was like an orphan, and so they did a lot for him and made sure he was good, even though his grandmother was still alive, but she had very abusive ways. So he ended up in foster care. So he was very intelligent, genius. Okay, so he is a genius, and so science came natural for him. So he was going to go to Brazil to medical school, ended up going to Bethune-Cookman because it's just people intervened and helped him along the way. So as he was at Bethune-Cookman, he was my grandmother basically adopted him. My grandmother, Stormy. So I'll talk about Stormy. Stormy is what you would say major Boulé, of Chicago, but she has roots in Atlanta. In fact, one of the streets is named after her family. Her real name was Leola Clark. So she was Clark and also Hunter. So if you've ever heard the last name Hunter, those are some of the names that you would, hear with these certain families. Okay. So Stormy was her name, her nickname, and that was my dad's mom. Okay. And when he graduated from Bethune-Cookman, he went to Chicago. He married my mom in Philadelphia. They moved to Chicago. Then he got a job with the steel industry, Inland Steel, in Gary, Indiana. So they lived in Gary, Indiana, like one of those, track homes. You know how they have the little track homes? And Gary, Indiana was the little city that was very heavily populated with Black Boulé. Okay, so you know, lots of Black people doing really well, brand new homes being built in little cookie cutter communities. So my parents had one of those kind of homes. And people were just, it was a booming like town because of steel and that time period in our country. So they live in Gary, and then my godmother, my godmother being the woman that they wanted him to marry becomes my godmother. Okay, so if I've been rambling that point, hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so you'll see the connection. All right, so let's see. Where? Okay. All right, so in this picture, you'll see my godmother, the little girl with the doll in her hand. That's my godmother, Jackie Barrow. Next to her is my grandmother, Stormy, or Leola Clark Hunter. And next to her, you recognize Joe Lewis. So Joe Lewis is the father of my godmother. So that's how Joe Lewis factors in. All right. And in Chicago, they have that tight-knit circle of the Black Boulé. So my grandmother being very integral part in that Chicago Black Boulé society, and my godmother, Jackie, of course, she came from a family that, they had, means, and she married Joe Lewis when he was an up and coming star. All right. So I never met Joe Lewis. So he was not someone in my life. My godmother and we had that tie. Okay. So she would talk to me a lot about, Joe Lewis being her father. I would just hear some of the stories that are just, she and I have interesting fathers. So we had a lot in common. She had never had children. She adopted a child. I'll tell you about that in a bit. But she was married, really tragic type of things. She was married a couple of times. One time, I think her husband might have, because I didn't meet him. It was like at a time when I was, busy in my life. She was on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. And so I didn't even know she had gotten married a couple of times. Well, she told me about the other one, but I didn't really have a chance to meet them. They were just like quick marriages. So again, she mainly was a single woman, but she had lots of friends and she enjoyed her life. She worked in she was, I think the insurance industry, real estate. It was mainly real estate. And I think she did something like in the mathematical part of real estate, whatever she was doing, like in the loan and stuff like that area. So that was her thing. Underwriter. I think she was an underwriter. What am I saying? That's what I think she was. So I just knew her as my aunt. I didn't really care. Like I knew she had a good job. But when I would come and spend time with her, we would just have such a wonderful time. She was an amazing person. And I went to spend time with her in California. I would spend like a summer with her. When I was in college, I went to spend time with her. She was living in San Diego. If you know anything about the downtown area of San Diego, really beautiful. She had like a condominium. It was beautiful. And I just hung out with her. And it was just wonderful, our times together. She would just take me out to the best restaurants. She loved good restaurants. She just loved like living well. And you could say she was like a gourmand. And all the best restaurants, we would go to the Chart House in San Diego and sit by the ocean and just eat seafood and just enjoy each other's company. She would tell me so many amazing stories. She was the best storyteller, just amazing. And the stories that she would tell would just have you riveted because they were she had a really adventurous, amazing life. I mean, aside from her being the daughter of Joe Louis, of course she is. Like, for instance, she babysat, what's his name? The guy, from Mission Impossible, his son, the black guy from Mission Impossible, if anybody's like kind of that era. She babysat his son, and I loved him on Jerry Seinfeld. He was like Jackie. Remember the guy, the lawyer, and he would go, Jackie Childs, that. She used to babysit the guy that played Jackie Childs. And it was just so funny when she told me that. I don't think he was a character yet when she told me, so I didn't know he had a comedic side. But she had those kind of interesting relationships and experience. Greg, thank you, sculptors. I count on you all. Greg Morris, that's who it is. She babysat Greg Morris and people like that. Yeah, when she was living in Beverly Hills or wherever she was living for a little bit. And but mainly she lived in Chicago. And then Chicago, and they had properties in Miami, like condo in Miami. They were snow bunnies. You heard the term snow bunnies. They would live in Chicago, and then in the winter they would go down to Miami. So that's how they lived. So let's see. Let me go to the next. Have like some slides. All right, so my grandmother Stormy and my godmother's mother were best friends. Okay, so if you get the connection, my godmother Jackie, her mother was named Marva. My aunt Marva was best friends with my grandma Stormy. Okay, so that's that connection. So Marva was a socialite, beautiful, as you can see. She's the one that has the black dress on. She's like feeding cake. And then you see my grandmother Stormy. Okay, so yeah, snowbirds. That's what they're called, Molly. Snowbirds. What did I call them? Snow bunnies? Did I say snow bunnies? I didn't mean snow bunnies. Snowbirds. Yes, snowbirds. Okay, so so Marva was a socialite. So is my grandma Stormy. They're socialites, and a lot of people don't know this aspect of, as you could say, Black or Negro history, because the narrative is always, and they were slaves. Remember, I've told you that not everybody was a slave, and that the narrative and the timeline doesn't make sense. You don't have to go that far back to see that things don't add up with this out of Africa on slave ships, because my family, they were this part of my family, they were elite back in the 1800s and stuff. They were doing well. They were taking vacations on the steamliners. They were going to Europe and stuff. So a lot of people don't realize this about the Negro Americans, that this is the time for every lie to be exposed about this whole, like, we were all like, what? Africans, so there are no remnants of African culture. When I go back into the generations of my family, there's no, they spoke the same language, English, okay? English names. Like I said, my grandmother's name is Leola Clark. Her nickname is Stormy. Does that sound African? Leola Clark Hunter. Then my aunt Marva. So this kind of stuff is, and then Joe Louis is Joe Louis Barrow. So where are the African names? Because we're going back several, generations, and we had these names. So this is why we have to, really think about what really happened. How did it happen? And the thing about identity is that now it's being revealed, the identity of my people, my family. But it's one of it should be celebrated. Not It's nothing to be upset about. I'm just glad to know, because it's really hard not knowing. That's really like horrible to not be able to say, oh, I'm from this. The African thing never, it doesn't make sense, you know? So being from here, this is the only place, the only land. Okay. So everybody we got to just accept it, because it's a fact. If it were the other way again, my people would have names that sound African. They would have spoken another dialect, another language. You see? All right. So sounds like the names of your relatives, Tina, right? Interesting, isn't it? All right. So Marva was a beautiful woman. My Aunt Marva, stunning woman. Just when I went into her home in Chicago, she had several properties in Chicago. She did really well after the divorce from Joe Louis. Now, Joe Louis ended up penniless, which is sad, right? I'm going to read. I want to see what Wikipedia has to say about Joe Louis. So we'll kick his wiki. But he did not do well. Okay. It was real sad. Some of the stories, when I get to his Wikipedia, we'll see if they've included some of the things that I know, from what my aunt told me about her father. Some things I wouldn't even mention, you know what I'm saying? It's just private family stuff, but he is a public figure and a historical one for America. So, that I definitely honor. It's very hard to be famous and to, be cheated out of things. You know how horrible it's been for a lot of athletes and musicians, and you see, okay, I don't even have to bring up any details. You all already know, you've observed it. And they end up dying penniless and alone. And it's really sad. So moving on, my grandmother, Stormy, she had a business. She went to Clark College, it was called back then, in Atlanta, Clark College, and she graduated. However, she went into business. Her husband, he died before I was born, so I didn't get to know him, but he had backed her to have a business. So she had a beauty salon called Stormy's, and it was beautiful. So the picture I have here is on the grand opening of her beauty salon. And you can see all the flowers. It looks like a funeral. It's so many flowers, right? But these are, it was a big deal, and she was big in Chicago. So, it was just a big, big thing. So many people came out, and they had the professional photographer and everything. And the thing about my grandmother, Stormy, and I put this in the thumbnail, is she had because of the way that the Black Boulé, how they are socialized, and they have sort of these very toxic hangups, some of them. And one of them is your hair texture and your skin color and tone. So they have this thing that started in Philadelphia. Pretty much that's where I first learned, in terms of a place, but they call it the brown paper bag test. Has anybody ever heard of the brown paper bag test? Let me know. Because it was a real test. They really did test people by this. Who heard of the brown paper bag test? In fact, my buddy Super Sly, he has a funny sound effect, and it's really funny. It's like he has this thing. It's like brown paper bag, and I laugh all the time because that was a thing. You know about it, Teresita? Yes, yes. Thank you, Juan. If you know anything about Joe Louis, please share it in the chatmosphere. If you know any stories or if anything in the Wikipedia when I read it, let me know. Juan is saying Frank Sinatra paid for all of Louis's medical bills, according to the New York Times. Wow. Amazing. Yes, so the brown paper bag test, some of you all know about this. And what it is, you have to be no darker than a brown paper bag to be accepted into these little cliques and groups. Okay, so they used to have parties. In fact, my mother told me in Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, in fact, that they would have a brown paper bag at the door of the party, and you had to pass in order to be in, to enter the party. And my dad, he's told me stories where he used to try to go to these parties and he couldn't get in. My dad's very richly melanated, so he couldn't get into the parties with my mom and her little, her little friends, this little Boulé group of friends in Philadelphia. So, yeah, I think my daughter told me that he told her that the way around it is he would offer to do security at these parties. So that's how he got to hang out with those people. And my grandma Stormy also, the thing about hair texture, it's a lot of toxic stuff that goes along with hair texture. And it does leave you with a lot of hangups and insecurities, when you when you grow up in a family like these kind of families, like my family. Hair is obsessed over. And so you look at the texture of a child's hair, you know about it. It's really crazy. So my grandmother only did a certain texture hair in terms of her clients. And the texture would be like her texture and Lena Horne. So Lena Horne was also a friend in these circles. So my grandmother was her beautician when she was in Chicago. So these are the kind of people that ran in this circle. And just amazing stories. So I wanted to show you, this is my godmother when she was a little tot. And has anybody ever heard of Tom Thumb weddings? It's terrible, everybody. I'm not trying to say this is normal. Has anybody ever heard of a Tom Thumb wedding? I'll put it in the chat. Maybe I didn't say it clear, but let me throw it down. A Tom Thumb wedding. These are some really crazy things they used to do. Okay. Anybody ever heard of a Tom Thumb wedding? Let me know. Let me see who's here in the chatmosphere. Julie, welcome, Julie. Oh my gosh, nice to see you. Let's give Julie some love. That's Julie. I haven't seen you in a while. We need to get together, Julie. Do something. Catch up. So, anybody ever heard of a Tom Thumb wedding out here? Hey, Paula. Welcome, Paula. Let's give Paulette, some love. There's a big lawsuit thing going on right now about straighteners, perms, cancer. Oh my God, I'm so glad you said this, Paulette. You really helped me to I'm gonna talk about that. You're right. There is a big lawsuit about that. I want to talk about it at another time too, but I'm gonna touch on that. Thank you. If I don't touch on it, please remind me. Okay. Scorched Siren says my grandmother used to be compared to Lena Horne. Really? Oh, she was a stunner, huh? Princess Leia's grandma. Oh, that's so funny, right? So, has anybody ever heard of the Tom Thumb wedding? Let me see. Anybody? Vaguely, Teresita? Never? Juan says never. No to you also, Paulette? You haven't either, Mercedes? Oh, Jilly. Okay, Jilly knows about him. Jilly says, I was in one, hated the poor guy for the rest of my life. Oh my God. That's terrible. Okay, wait a minute, everybody. Okay, okay, was it for certain, was it the Black Boulé that did these Tom Thumb weddings, Jilly? Because I am not all the way certain about these Tom Thumb weddings, but let me look it up. Let me see what Wiki says about Tom Thumb weddings. If anybody knows about them, let me know. Let's see. Who else? Hey, Paul. Good evening. Thanks for joining. Oh, Joyce says, I've heard my mother mention Tom Thumb weddings. You have? Oh my gosh. Let me see what they say. Tom Thumb weddings. It's really weird right now that we're talking about different things, right? It's a strange thing. Okay. Oh gosh, everybody, these pictures are weird. Okay, so Tom Thumb weddings are, does Wiki tell us anything? Etsy. Are they still doing these things? I hope not. Let me see. Let's see. James, welcome. You said, glad you have something to watch. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. Oh, RSBN reporting Brunson case being heard. Oh my God. Do we have something to celebrate, Molly? Give us some more info. Drop a link. Drop a link. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Eric. Hey, Eric. Even the smell of hair dye turns your stomach. Oh boy. Yeah, I bet. You've heard of shotgun weddings, but not Tom Thumb weddings. Okay, there you go. Thank you. See? Little People. Is that how it started? Tom Thumb. Oh, wait a minute. Tom Thumb weddings. I'm just going to go by your, thank you for that. I was hoping I could read it. Tom Thumb weddings were plays in which children performed mock marriage ceremonies while dressed in elaborate costumes. Okay, thank you. So I will look into this whole practice, like why were they doing this? General Tom Thumb was an American dwarf who achieved great fame as a performer under circus pioneer P.T. Barnum. So I guess this is why they had these, maybe to act out some sort of mystery play. But as you can see, you see my godmother here. She's dressed like a real bride. I mean, this looks like a true wedding, right? You did a Tom Thumb wedding? We did Tom Thumb weddings in school. Really? Joyce, you think they're still doing them? Really? What type of groups are still doing them? Nancy said it's almost as crazy as people having weddings for their pets. Yeah, I'm kind of somebody who would do that, right? I just showed you how Josephine has a collar like mine. Anybody else? Let's see. Camilla says, my dad hated when I got a perm. He would be proud to know I'm braids and that. Yes, that's right. Thank you. Yep, we're going to talk about that, Camilla, because there's something very interesting about that. Tina says, very strange to me to do that. Yeah, it is. I agree. It just gives me like a weird feeling. But it's an interesting time. I mean, that's why I really like learning about this history and what was going on that they wanted to do this, and why with children. I don't know. I'm just kind of over it. I don't want children to be used in any way when it comes to entertainment or whatever, making them seem like adults, I just wish we didn't do it. You said they weren't really mock plays. Those are arranged as children. IG, yeah, a little bit freaky. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, Jilly. It makes a weird spiritual tie. Yeah. That's like okay, I'm gonna really start thinking about this. Like, what the heck? Hey, Deanne, Sweeney, I think it reminds me of preschool when we were able to play dress up. Okay, Deanne, thank you. And let's welcome Deanne. Maybe there was a little sweet, innocent component to it. I'm not just painting it as totally like something sinister, but I think I'm just a little extra jumpy when it comes to children being like made into little adults. I guess if I had been divorced at 9 years old, I would have learned a lot and not lost. It's like a test run, Eric. Is that what you're saying? If you had a Tom Thumb wedding, you would have already known, okay, the next one, I'm going to know how to do this better. I'm going to make sure I don't lose everything. I don't lose my playhouse, my Matchbox set, right? You have to give up what else? What other toys? Can you imagine? She gets everything. She gets the playhouse. Let's see. People under 10. Oh, people under 12, Jen, not children. Careful. People under 12, Jen, not children. Yeah. Debutantes. Yeah, that's another thing. I'll talk about those another time. Debutantes. Yeah, I didn't do the debutante thing. Your big wills. That's what I wanted. That's right. You have to give up your big will to her. Who gets custody of the tricycle? Did they have children's divorce court? Oh my God, that's funny. Okay, so yeah, some people might have a problem that my godmother's playing with a white doll. That's a thing, okay? Isn't that something that even with this crazy racial narrative, that children and the dolls that they choose, they've done studies, they've done sociology studies, psychological studies. You've heard about the doll study, where they have this group of Negro, or if you want to say black children, and they ask them to choose dolls, like a black doll and a white doll, and these children would pick the white dolls, and they would assess like goodness on the white dolls, and on the black dolls they would say like bad things, like they think it's a bad doll, and just showing like this sort of like programming. And we're all under this programming. We can understand like the standard of beauty. Most of us do not fit the very narrow standard of beauty, right? We're outliers when it comes to that. And who wants to fit in it anyway? It's so stupid. But anyway, just wanted to show you my godmother when she was a little one, and she's just so adorable. And when I look at her in these pictures, it's just like she didn't change, you know, she still looks so cute. My mother the same way, like her baby pictures, her childhood pictures are the same. So you could just see one of these pictures that the brown bomber knocking somebody out. If anybody knows their boxing history, I don't know what fight this is. I forgot. She used to tell me a lot. I'm just not a sports person. I'm not sporty, okay, guys? So I won't know details about Joe Louis and stuff like that. And one thing I found interesting is that Joe was hanging out with Lena Horne in this picture, but I'm not trying to say anything, but I'm just saying he looked like, you know, he was looking at her like, yeah, hey, Lena. But I was just thinking, I don't know. I was going back and thinking, how interesting. Lena Horne is friends with my grandmother, and she's also friends with Joe Louis's wife, best friends with her wife. I'm not making anything out of it, okay? I'm not starting anything. I'm just saying this was funny to come across a picture of him and Lena. I'm sure it was innocent, right? And here's a really cute picture. I just snapped these pictures. They were on the wall, but I just love the picture where you can see my godmother. She's so cute. She's looking at her baby brother, and you can see Joe Louis holding her baby brother. Now, I will not mention her brother too much because I wasn't in his life. Like I don't have a relationship with her brother, okay? And it's weird, right? How you could not, like, you could have family and then not know certain family. And she was close with her brother, but I know he lived on the other, you know, he lived on the other coast a lot when she was in California. And then she ended up moving to Florida. That's where she passed away back in 2019. But her brother, he, you know, of course, he probably knows of me, but I just don't know him. And I didn't reach out to him. I know that probably sounds really bad, but I'm going to tell you why. And you could give me your opinion. And you could give me some advice if you want. I will solicit your advice. Okay, so you can see my Aunt Marva, you know, looking fabulous as usual. She was one of those women like my grandma Stormy. They were like perfect all the time, well tailored. They always had their nails done, and they were just always glamorous, even when they were at home in their beautiful negligees, as they call them, or whatever, like beautiful robes, and they were very glamorous. My grandmother Stormy had a car parked down in her, like, she lived in a high rise in Chicago overlooking, you know, Lake Michigan, and she had a car that she never drove, but she had to start it up every day, and she would get dressed up just to go start her car up and let it run for a little while. And then she would go somewhere on the bus. She took the buses around Chicago, the trains, taxis, and never drove her car. So anyway, these are some pictures of my godmother's family. So you can see what I'm talking about. When you look at the Negro, okay, I'm adopting essential Americans, organic Americans, whatever you want to call it, brunette Americans. This is the average, okay? This is just an average family. I want you to just take a look at this. Do they look like they come from Africa? Because these are like, this is the 1800s and stuff. So you see what I'm saying? they would not have dropped their culture that quickly and adopted this so-called American culture like something that is foreign. So I want to bring this out because it's important that we stop believing lies. And more will be revealed, but these are just, I guess you could say, soft disclosures until we get to the big ones, because we will be getting to the big ones, okay? No one smiled. No one smiled, Juan said in those days. I don't know. I guess they didn't smile too much. Yeah. Okay, so these are family pictures, everyone. And I love the wicker. How about wicker? We need to bring wicker back. I used to love wicker. I had lots of wicker furniture when I was little. How about you? Were you into wicker? I had wicker chairs, wicker headboard, all kinds of, I think my cat even had, yeah, my cat had a little wicker bed. So wicker was so neat. It's not a thing anymore. I want some wicker. And so this is another picture of my godmother. And when I asked my father, like, why didn't you marry her? And okay, guys, let's just be real. My father said that he thought she was too chubby. Okay? I'm just being serious. He said she was a little too chubby for him. Isn't that terrible? But I mean, that's his preference. What am I going to say? She had freckles too. I don't know if he liked the freckles so much, but she had freckles and she had more of like a reddish hair. And I guess he didn't like that look. Sorry, freckle people. I think freckles are really cool. But anyway, you could kind of see her reddish hair. But I want to say something about, okay, when you look at the family picture and you see the baby girl, because my Aunt Marva, she remarried and she married a man. He was a doctor. His name was Dr. Spalding. Okay. I called him Dr. Spalding. Okay. I didn't call him uncle, but Dr. Spalding. And Dr. Spalding, as you can see, he was very handsome doctor and, just pretty good looking guy. She helped him get through medical school, and I don't know much about his practice, the details of his practice. I was just never that kind of kid that I wanted to know all of the business of adults. I didn't really care. Mercedes said that you're freckled. I love freckles. I think they're cute. They're beautiful. In fact, they say they're like the stars, the constellations. So I know they're beautiful on you. Why do they try to continue to push the race card? Yeah, well, the Tippinator, we're gonna just destroy their narrative, their racial narratives, right? It's just, what? It's good to get it out in the open, just clarify some of this stuff and just get past it. I'm past it. I can talk about race. I don't have any emotions or anything attached to it. Donna said Dr. Spalding is very handsome. Yes, he's a very handsome man, right? This is the Black Boulé, everybody. So I just want you to know that this is, it's interesting, okay? Like I told you, I'm in it, but not of it. All right. So the little baby girl in the picture was the child that my Aunt Marva had with Dr. Spalding. Okay. So that was the baby, and she was beautiful. She was a very talented artist, and she was in an art school in Boston. And she met a man when she went to art school. She decided to continue living in Boston. So this guy that she ended up marrying, turned out that he was a a criminal in terms of like a gangster mafia type of guy. And one night, someone entered their home, their apartment in Boston, and killed her and her husband, because she married this man, killed her and her husband in their sleep, gangland style. So they were executed gangland style. Now, this was a very traumatic, tragic thing to happen. And she was so beautiful, like, from a good family. Do you see? Good family, daddy's a doctor, mom is a socialite. How is it that she would get gangland executed in her sleep? How? So this was something that just tore this family apart. And, my godmother just never got over it. I don't know how her brother, how he fared with all of it. But it was it was something you could always feel, this tragedy. You could just feel it. It's just something that, is all over the news. I mean, it's just a horrendous thing to happen. So it was something that I just never understood, but I knew my godmother just suffered so much with that pain, never got over it. She had lots of tragedies like that, in fact. Now, here's a picture of my Aunt Marva and Dr. Spalding. And you could just see how my Aunt Marva was such a beauty, and just, she screamed socialite, right? Black Boulé socialite. So yeah, again, like some of the homes, when I would go to Chicago for Christmas and stuff, we would go to my Aunt Marva's. She would always have these big parties and, big spreads, and she had people that worked for, she had like servants that worked for her, and, she had it catered, and just, I've never seen such, it was like going to the White House to eat dinner. So I had to learn how to be around people like that. You have to have your little etiquette classes and know how to, Chicago. That's right, Molly. Molly remembers. Yeah, we'd be in Chicago at my Aunt Marva's, right? And Aunt Marva just loved to entertain, and her home was amazing. I can't even tell you everything about her home, every little detail. Those kind of women, it's just perfect. And she would change her decor sometimes, but it was classically appointed, just the best of the best. So that's how she was, the most amazing clothes. And she was also friends with, they were friends with, what's her name from the Johnson Publishing. Why am I forgetting her? She passed away. I'm going to talk about her one day. That was another friend of my grandmom's. But, Ebony and Jet and Mr. Johnson and his wife. Why am I forgetting his wife? Does anybody remember Mr. Johnson's wife? I should know that. Oh, my God. Anyway, I'm going to tell you more about her another time. So they were friends with her, those were the kind of people they would know. Somebody said the mob. Yeah, the mob, definitely. I don't know what this involved, how deep in terms of my godmother's sister, but she did not know. Eunice, thank you. Oh, I just love it how you helped me. Eunice, how can I forget Eunice? I got to tell you guys about Eunice. Boy, you talk about the brown paper bag test. Eunice was a colorist, as they call them. I love Eunice, but these women were straight colorists, okay? Craziness with this. We gotta talk about it. It's not pretty, but I don't mind talking about it. That's why I don't get along with the Boulé, because I talk about this stuff. and I don't think it's normal. But here is my godmother, Jackie, and you can see me as a little one. So I love that picture because it looks like I'm making her come with me. I'm like, come on, Aunt Jackie, come and watch, come play with me, come into my room. I had like all these toys and everything, but she was always visiting me in Gary, Indiana. Chicago, basically Gary, Indiana and Chicago, it's like a suburb, basically. It's just a few minutes train ride away. But she would always spend time with me in Gary. And then the other picture is when I was christened. So you can see her. She has this funny looking flower hat. And then my godfather is the guy in the suit. And then my mother has that cool hat on. It looks like an orange hat. My mom was always like the best dresser. She loved to be shopping at Marshall Fields. That was like my grandma Stormy and my mother used to tear Marshall Fields up. Okay. So my grandma was a big shopper. That Miracle Mile, they knew her all up and down the Miracle Mile. So I wore clothes that were so ridiculous. Okay. My mother just went overboard. Okay. So it was just a funny thing. My dad, it would drive him crazy, just absolutely crazy. But my godmother, she had an interesting incident that happened where she would have been on that plane that crashed in the Cayman. I think it was the Cayman. No, not the Cayman, but the Falkland Islands. Does anybody remember a big plane crash that happened? And it'll come to me. It was just really tragic. It was like, I don't know if it was the Falkland Islands or some really rare island. And she was scheduled to travel with some friends. And listen to this, you guys. She told me that at the last minute, she did not want to go on the trip. And this was not like her. This is like paid for a trip, and to a place where not a lot of people travel. And she just felt like she shouldn't get on that plane. And she said she just didn't get on. I don't know if she was able, they didn't, of course, have cell phones, so it wasn't like she could call her friends, but she just had a really bad feeling. And she learned that the plane crashed. I believe everybody on board perished. And she had 2 friends that I could remember, 2 friends that perished. And it was just like, she had so much pain, with her sister being executed and then her friends dying in that plane crash that she would have died in. And it just like, some people just have so much trauma. It's unreal. And another thing, she wanted to adopt a child, and she adopted this little boy named Philip. And I remember, she was really excited in the process of her adopting Philip. And Philip was a really cute little boy. He had like little sandy blonde hair, kind of like he looked like her. She got a match that would look like he was really her child. And I think she got Philip at maybe 6 years old, 5 or 6. And when they were in Chicago, she put him in school, like, a little day school. And for the first year, he was really good, and he was enjoying, life with my godmother and my Aunt Marva. They were spoiling him so much. Like, he had a bike on each coast. He had a bike in LA. He had a new bike in Chicago, one for Miami when they went to Miami. So he was just being spoiled. And The second year that she had Philip, it was so weird. It was like the first year was like the honeymoon period where he was just really like, it was just great. And I was so happy for her. And she had all the support, with everyone in Chicago to help her. Because remember, she wasn't married, so she was adopting him as a single mother. And the second year of his adoption, he began to jack the kids up at school. And when I say jack them up, I mean he was putting a hurting on the children. He would take children and he would put their heads in toilets and just go off, okay? And it got so bad, he was kicked out of so many great schools in Chicago. Can you imagine, where they were telling my godmother that he should be institutionalized? They were like, you need to send him to a psychiatrist. So they took him to the best psychiatrist you can imagine. Like, he went to a psychiatrist in LA. Then they wanted to get a second opinion in Chicago. And one of the things that he also did, well, two of the things that he did, is Philip would take food. When my godmother would feed Philip, they would make, like, even my Aunt Marva, this is how they are. They would make a few different types of food, like burgers and hot dogs and everything on a plate. He could just pick whatever he wants, as much as he wants. It was always just abundance. And my godmother said that she started to notice like strange smells in the house, like in the living room, and also at my Aunt Marva's house too, because they would spend time between two homes. And she said these smells were just coming out of the sofa and different things in the chairs. And when they finally figured it out, it was food that was being stuffed in the chairs. Philip was taking food and he was squirreling it away. And, they couldn't understand. They would just tell him, Philip, you don't have to do that. You can have as much food as you want. Don't do that. And he continued to do it. So they couldn't get him to understand that he didn't have to be in that survival mode, whatever that was. And then, what was the other? Oh, he would take the jewelry of my Aunt Marva and he would take like a hammer. He would find a hammer somewhere in the house. And my godmother told me one day she heard a lot of noise coming from my Aunt Marva's closet. And she went into, the closet to see. And Philip was in there with my Aunt Marva's jewelry on the floor. And he was banging the jewelry with the hammer. He was tearing her jewelry up. And it was like, he started doing so many things. And he's only like 6 years old, everyone. So when the reports were in from the psychiatrist, like I said, they suggested that she would put him in an institution. Both psychiatrists suggested that. They said that he was so damaged that it was something that he couldn't live with a family like hers. He needed to have intensive therapeutic, like an institution, basically. And it was horrible that both doctors gave that report. And that was another major disappointment for my godmother. She was just always having bad news, bad things happen. And I used to feel, my heart was just so heavy. I just understood, even in my youth, I knew that she carried a lot of pain. And she was just so good to me. I really loved her, really, really loved my aunt. And, I just really wished that she could have had a happier life. And so she had to give Philip up. And like I said, she had some marriages. She had one, and I believe her husband died in a car crash. He was an alcoholic, and he wrapped his Mercedes around a tree, and it was just really sad stuff. So she just had a life that it was hard. So she eventually moved from Los Angeles. She was between Los Angeles and San Diego. So her brother convinced her to move to Florida, to Jacksonville. And I was excited, like, yay, Aunt Jackie, you're going to be on the East Coast finally. So I was so happy that she was going to be, with her brother, around him. And I went to see her. I spent some time with her in 2000, and I think it was 16. That's the last time I saw her. 2016. I went down to Jacksonville, and she was living in one of those retirement communities. And it was so cute because she told all of her little friends that, oh, my goddaughter is coming. She's going to spend the time with me. And when I arrived, it was so cute. All of her they were all Jewish women. So, it was like, I've always been around Jewish women, so I know, like, it's just funny. So they were like, oh my God, oh, there you are. And it was just so great to be sitting at the tables. Like, she would go to dinner at a certain time with her little clique. And I went down and we just had nice conversations, hanging out with her friends. And she had a really cute apartment, and all her friends on her floor. I met everybody, and some of them had pets, and it was just really sweet. And one thing that we did, I took her to a movie. We went to, that's where you see us together. Her health began to decline, and she had kidney damage, and she was on dialysis like 3 times a week at that point. And, she just spent so much time at the dialysis center. So when I was down there, I would just, wait for her to come back, and I took her to dinner. I treated her this time. It was so great to be able to treat her to dinners and stuff. And because in that picture, you see the earlier picture where she's more filled out. That's us. We're at one of her favorite restaurants in San Diego. She loved the Chart House. She loved like all these like great places. The Jolly Rancher, I think it was one. If you were a San Diegan, what do you guys call yourselves? San Diegans? You know all those good restaurants. She just loved them. So we're hanging out, and you see her long nails. She always had like glamorous long red nails, and she collected frogs. I would always buy her frogs. If I'd see a little crystal frog or anything when I'm out and about, I would always send her gifts of frogs. And she liked a lot of that loud, I call it loud perfume. Anything that was like bold. I think she loved one called Red. And so I knew her taste. Okay. She was red nails, and she loved that really loud perfume. So I would just get her perfume and frogs, and trinkets. She would love those little trinkets. So yeah, the last time I spent time with my Aunt Jackie, my godmother, I was in Jacksonville there with her, where you see her with the turban. She started to lose a lot of her hair, and she lost a lot of weight. And, I could tell that she felt ashamed of how she looked, but I didn't care. I loved her. And I was able to just spoil her and take her to dinner. And she enjoyed it so much. And when I took her to the movies, it was so cute. When we went out, I didn't rent a car or anything because I flew down, and I just said I'll just do Uber. And she was so amazed at Uber. She loved Uber. It was so cute. I was like, yeah, they're going to come and pick us up. And she was like, really? And so I said, yeah. And then I'm going to call another Uber and we're going to go to a movie. And she was like, what? And so it was just so cute. So I just had a great time with her that last time. And, she was into making jewelry. So she gave me some pieces of jewelry and some scarves and stuff. And those kind of things are priceless. So, okay, I started traveling a whole lot. I told you, it was like I was running away from always traveling. And she even gave me some pieces to wear. I was going to Cuba, and I wore some of her jewelry and stuff, and scarf. I think I wore my scarf around my head a few times in Cuba. And she was like, yeah, wear it in Cuba because I want to see a picture with you with the jewelry and stuff. So it was really nice. And then I got caught up with that. Then I took a travel nurse assignment in Savannah, and then COVID hit. So then I was up in New York, and I don't know, I feel bad that I didn't keep in touch like I could have. And one of the things that's so amazing about my mother is my mother was very close with her. My mom was friends with her, even though they wanted her to marry my dad. So I want you to realize my mom would just pick up the phone and call her a lot. So I knew how she was doing because my mom would always say, I talked to your Aunt Jackie and she was doing good. We had a great conversation. See, I'm not a telephone person, and I feel bad about that because I'm probably missing out on a lot because I just don't like to talk on the phone. I talk on the phone like to girl code and stuff, but I'm just like not a telephone person. But my mom is like real chatty telephone kind of person. So she could keep up with all that. And she would just always talk to my Aunt Jackie. And then my mom was like, she was saying, Jackie, you could come up here and stay with me. Like you could come stay here so we could look out for you. And it was just so sweet. My mom was totally serious. She would have totally done that. And then my mom had this feeling. She was like, I've been trying to get a hold of Jackie and I can't get a hold of her. And so I just felt this, how you feel that like that feeling in the pit of your stomach. I was like, oh my God. So I called the front desk because I knew the front desk people at the place where she was living, and they knew me. And I said, I want to see how my Aunt Jackie is doing. And they told me, they said, Jennifer, your Aunt Jackie died. And I was like, what? They said she died. And I was just floored. And this is where I want to get your advice, okay? I did not want to reach out to her brother. He's like a big time person. I didn't want to reach out to him because now I could be really tripping, and that's why I want you to tell me. I didn't want anybody to think like I wanted anything like I was after money. So, because she was my godmother, she wasn't blood to me. So I didn't want her brother, who I didn't have a relationship with, I didn't want him thinking, oh, who are you coming around? Were you trying to sniff around for some money? And so I just, because I didn't have a relationship with him, I did not want to appear like that because I had missed her funeral. She had already been buried by the time I learned about her death. So I didn't know what to do with my feelings. Like, I don't know if that's ever happened to anybody where you're like, you're way late. They've already buried the person. And because he didn't have a relationship with me, he didn't think to reach out to me, you know? And it feels like I didn't have whatever you need, because the funerals are not for the person, it's for the people be left behind. So I don't have anything. And I have my memories, right? I have the jewelry she made me. I have the beautiful scarves. And I have great memories. So I'll just have to deal with that. And one of the things about her that I think she did a really good job being my godmother is that she pointed me to Jesus. Even though we talk about the black boulee, she wasn't of it either. My godmother was a black sheep because she didn't live her life in a way where, she was always telling people that she was Joe Louis's daughter. She didn't live a life like that. She lived a very frugal life. She liked nice things, but she wasn't like her mother, like her mother was a socialite, glamorous and everything. And she took really good care of her mother. When my Aunt Marva, she had Alzheimer's after a while. And my Aunt Marva, when she had Alzheimer's, she actually like accused my father. He was just visiting her one time and she was like, "You're trying to get my money. You're trying to get my money." So it's like how sometimes they get really paranoid. So I was already kind of sensitive. Like, I hope they don't think that, anybody is after money. That's definitely not anything that I'm ever interested in like that. My Aunt Marva, she had lots of property around Chicago, beautiful properties. And so my Aunt Jackie took care of a lot of that stuff when Marva finally died, because Dr. Spalding had died earlier. And as you know, doctors, they don't have the most healthy lifestyles and stuff, if you didn't know that. They tend to die kind of in their 40s and stuff, a lot of doctors. And so she settled all of her mother's affairs. She was telling my mom about a lot of those details about the property in Miami and stuff, in Chicago. And then then my godmother just, her body just couldn't take all of that, and she passed away. And I don't know many details because, again, I'm not in touch with her brother. And it's for no reason other than I just never had a relationship with him. So I wanted to just share that, about her, even though she was born into this black boulee group. She was not of it. She was not. And like I said, I can remember one summer I spent with her in California, and she and I would go to church. And that was the very first time I ever attended a non-denominational church. And she went to this really amazing church in San Diego, lively worship and everything. I'd never been around this kind of worship because I was always going to like either my mother's Baptist church, Baptist kind of churches are different. And then my stepmother was Jewish, so I'm going to the temple with her. And then this sort of non-denominational, music and all this stuff. And it was so, I remember one particular service that we were at in San Diego, and I was so moved. They had an altar call, and I walked up, for salvation, to like make that public announcement that I accepted Jesus, his sacrifice. And she, as a godmother, she did a good job. And she's helped me in my faith journey. She helped me. So I know that God has rewarded her, and for her life to be as painful, I'm just glad that she's not in pain. And I know that she's with the Lord. So, I just wanted to share that, because it just occurred to me today that I was like, I am compartmentalizing a lot of feelings, and I didn't know that, that I needed to process more, so just want to share that. She looks a lot like my mother. It's funny. When I look at her, she looks a lot like my mom. And she was my mom. She was my godmother. So thank you for listening. And sorry for the tears. I didn't know I'd do this. But that is my godmother, the godmother, my life with the Black Boulé. And I'll share more. These are just little historical capsules, and it's American history. Gives us another, just another narrative besides the one we've always heard. Let me see if I wrote any notes that I want to share. Sometimes I have to write them down. Oh, I did want to talk about hair stuff. I want to just mention something, and I'll talk about it at another time because someone brought this up. Hair straighteners, chemical hair straighteners. There is currently conversation going on where they are linking a lot of cancers, like uterine cancers and fibroids, especially in Black, Negro, whatever you want to call women that got these chemical processes. And there's been a high, just like I said, fibroids and cancers. It's interesting that one of the women in this socialite circle, she was like a little mentor to my dad. And, she was friends with my aunts and my grandmother. She had given my dad this, it was like a container. And I remember, like, he told me like about it. Her name is Marjorie Joyner. If anybody from Chicago knows about Marjorie Joyner, she was an educator, like a cosmetology educator, just big time, person in the community around Chicago. So she had given this to my dad, and he's a chemist, right? So she said he could develop it into a hair product. And she just said, just take this and figure it out. And if you develop it into a hair product, it could be your product. Okay. She was just going to let him have it, I guess. And he never developed it. Can you imagine? He showed me the container, and it just looked like a whole bunch of white powder. but it was some kind of chemical mix that he could have had one of those relaxers maybe on the market, which I'm glad he didn't develop it, okay? Because the hair relaxers are now being looked at. So yeah, it's funny how things happen, right? For whatever reason, he never developed the product. And I'm not saying Marjorie Joyner would have hurt people on purpose or whatever. It might have been a whole different type of product. I don't know. But I just wanted to bring it up to say that hair relaxers that were used a lot, really bad news. Yeah. So the guru is here. The guru. Do you remember? Did you get a chance to meet Aunt Jackie, the guru? Tell me, because I'm trying to remember. Did you know my Aunt Jackie? Look at that. The guru is here. Did you know her? Oh my goodness. Thank you. Crazy kind of love. Who's here? God bless you, Jen. Never be afraid. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Oh, I guess it was a dedication. Maybe I got a chance to do a dedication. Wow. Thank you. Summer Soul. Jen, you seem like a pretty. Oh, thank you. I hope so. We did some cool things. Sometimes she would be like doing a layover in Atlanta when I lived in Atlanta. I remember that a few times. She was like, I'm going to be in Atlanta. And this is, before the craziness. And I met her in the airport like a few times, just like sat around, waited for her connecting flight, just sometimes had, cool things like that happen. Yeah. So, yep. I think sometimes we could just like bottle things up. And this is a season right now where I know a lot of people are experiencing loss. And I want us to be able to talk about it, definitely. Think about ways to support people, each other in this season. Any ideas are welcome. Hi there, Miss OMG. I think he would like you reaching out to him. When people get older, they really appreciate that. You think so? See, that's what I appreciate, like advice, because I wouldn't know what to say. Like I said, I don't know him. He's like a big time person, he's one of like big, he's a big deal. So, thank you for that though. I'm definitely, if anybody has any other ideas, let me know. Let me know. Oh, Juan, thank you. That's a good idea. I need to find out. Go visit her gravesite, lay some flowers, and oh wow, thank you, Juan. I'm gonna have to do that. Oh, help me. Pray for me that I get some strength in order to approach her brother. Actually, you know what? I think I did maybe send him an email. Cause I think I tried. I have to think back. But yeah, that would be good. Thank you, thank you. So that's a little tribute turned into a tribute. I'll talk more about the interesting little things about growing up in America and some of the narratives that we've been taught. You never met her, the guru? Oh, you would have liked her. My daughter definitely has been around her, so she definitely knew her. Yeah. Well, I think that was it for my pictures. Yeah. Yep. So there it is. Me and my Aunt Jackie, the godmother. So I'll see you all soon. Brunson case being heard by SCOTUS. Still time, everybody. Still time. If anybody is out there that wants to put a letter in, an amicus brief, please know you can still do it. Thank you, Molly, for the reminder. The guru, you said she definitely looks like family. I know. The funny thing, the guru, what if I'm starting to have this, it's a discerning feeling that I feel that they are blood to us in a weird way. I'm thinking Stormy is possibly really related, even though it was an adoption. I'm just, it's a feeling I have. I need to do more research, but it'll come because this is the season, right? When all things will be revealed. So we'll see all the connections, right? Probably a lot of you might be my family out here in the chatmosphere. We might find out, right? Yes, we are one, Donna. Thank you for that. We are all one. And I love you all. Thank you for this time together, allowing me to tell my little sob story. No, I'm only kidding. But thank you all. Glad we could get together again. Oh, wait, I was going to read Joe Lewis's Wikipedia. Do you want me to do that real quick? Let me read Joe Lewis's Wikipedia real quick. Let's see what they're saying about the brown bomber. Let's go to the brown bomber. Okay. Joe Louis, brown bomber. Joseph Louis Barrow was born May 13th, 1940. 14. Okay, May 13th, 1914. He died April 12th, 1981. Was an American professional boxer who competed from 1934 to 1951, nicknamed the Brown Bomber. Lewis is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential boxers of all time. He reigned as the world heavyweight champion from 1937 until his temporary retirement in 1949. He was victorious in 25 consecutive title defenses, a record for all weight classes. Lewis had the longest single reign as champion of any boxer in history. I didn't know that, you all. I'm embarrassed. Okay. Lewis's cultural impact was felt well outside the ring. He is widely regarded as the first person of, see how they say African American descent, to achieve the status of a nationwide hero within the United States, and was also a focal point of anti-Nazi sentiment leading up to and during World War II because of his historic rematch with German boxer Max Schmeling in 1938. He was instrumental in integrating the game of golf. Wow, integrating the game of golf, breaking the sports color barrier in America by appearing under a sponsor's exemption in a PGA event in 1952. Born on May 13, 1914 in rural Chambers County, Alabama, shout out to Bama, right, Tina? In a ramshackle dwelling on Bell Chapel Road, located 1 mile off State Route 50 and roughly 6 miles from Lafayette. Lewis was the seventh of 8 children of Monroe Barrow and Lily Reese Barrow. He weighed 11 pounds at birth. Whoa. Both of his parents were children of former slaves. There we are, people. The narrative is not narrating right. Alternating between sharecropping and rental farming. Monroe was an African American with some European ancestry, and Lily was half Cherokee. Lewis suffered from a speech impediment and spoke very little until age 6. Monroe Barrow was committed to a mental institution in 1916. Okay, we know that they put a lot of Negroes in the insane asylums, and this is how they were able to take a lot of land. We could talk about that another time, but I see something in this narrative. Okay, so committed to a mental institution. And as a result, Joe knew very little of his biological father. Around 1920, Joe Lewis's mother married Pat Brooks, a local construction contractor, having received word that Monroe Barrow had died while institutionalized. In reality, Monroe Barrow lived until 1938, unaware of his son's fame. In 1926, shaken by a gang of white men in the Ku Klux Klan, Lewis's family moved to Detroit, Michigan, forming part of the post-war World War I Great Migration. Joe's brother worked for Ford Motor Company. Wait a minute. Okay, so his brother worked for Ford Motor Company, where Joe would himself work for a time at the River Rouge plant. And the family settled into a home at 2700 Catherine, now Madison Street, in Detroit's Black Bottom neighborhood. Lewis attended Bronson Vocational School. Interesting, the name Bronson. Not Brunson, but interesting. Bronson with an O. Vocational school for a time to learn cabinet making. The Great Depression hit. It hit the Barrow family hard, but Joe still made time to work out at a local youth recreation center at 637 Brewster Street in Detroit. His mother attempted to get him interested in playing the violin. A classic story is that he tried to hide his pugilistic ambitions from his mother by carrying his boxing gloves inside his violin case. Lewis made his debut in early 1932 at the age of 17. Legend has it that before the fight, the barely literate Lewis wrote his name so large that there was no room for his last name, and thus became known as Joe Louis for the remainder of his boxing career. More likely, Lewis simply omitted his last name to keep his boxing a secret from his mother. After his debut, a loss to future Olympian Johnny Miller, Lewis compiled numerous amateur victories, eventually winning the club championship of his Brewster Street Recreation Center, the home of many aspiring Golden Gloves fighters. In 1933, Lewis won the Detroit area Golden Gloves Novice Division Championship against Joe Biskey for the light heavyweight classification. He later lost in Chicago, Golden Gloves Tournament of Champions. The next year, competing in the Golden Gloves Open division, he won the light heavyweight classification. This time also winning the Chicago Tournament of Champions against Max Bauer. However, a hand injury forced Lewis to miss the New York Chicago Champions crosstown bout for the Ultimate Golden Gloves Championship. In April 1934, he followed up his Chicago performance by winning the light heavyweight United States Amateur Champion National AAU tournament in St. Louis, Missouri. By the end of his amateur career, Lewis's record was 50-4 with 43 knockouts. Joe Louis had only 3 losses in his 69 professional fights. He tallied 52 knockouts and held the championship from 1937 to 1949, the longest span of any heavyweight title holder. After returning from retirement, Lewis failed to regain the championship in 1950, and his career ended after he was knocked out by Rocky Marciano in 1951. And let's see. I'm trying to see what it would say about his oh, interesting. Look at this. While training for a fight against Lee Ramage, Lewis noticed a young female secretary for the black newspaper at the gym. After Ramage was defeated, the secretary, Marva Trotter, oh, look at that, was invited to the celebration party at Chicago's Grand Hotel. Trotter later became Lewis's first wife in 1935. Look at that. So there enters my Aunt Marva. Let's see if it says anything about... It's a lot going on in here. I've got to really read what his history... And now I'm interested, right, in what they're saying. Of course, I know what my Aunt Jackie told me about her dad. But yeah, look at that. Lewis's victory was a seminal moment in African American history. Thousands of African Americans stayed up all night across the country in celebration. Noted author and member of the Harlem Renaissance, Langston Hughes, described Lewis's effect in these terms. Each time Joe Louis won a fight in those Depression years, even before he became champion, thousands of Black Americans on relief or WPA and poor would throng out into the streets all across the land to march and cheer and yell and cry because of Joe's one-man triumphs. No one else in the United States has ever had such an effect on Negro emotions or on mine. I marched and cheered and yelled and cried too. So that was Langston Hughes wrote that about Joe Louis. So yeah. Let's see. He was in the Army. He served in... Lewis fought a charity bout for the Navy Relief Society against his former opponent, Buddy Byer, and raised $47,000 for the fund. The next day, he volunteered to enlist as a private in the United States Army at Camp Upton, Long Island. So, look at that. Let's see. Taxes, you know about the IRS. He had lots of IRS issues. It says that in 1949, Cab Calloway rendered homage to the King of the Ring with his song Old Joe Louis. Let's see, what else? It's a lot. And professional golf. Oh boy. Well, I won't read the whole wiki, but that's enough, right? We hung out for a bit. Oh my goodness, the Tippinator. Thank you for the tip. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I love you too. Thank you, thank you. All right, so there you are. A little bit about Joe Louis to end out on. You see my little funny thing I put in my in my thumbnail, everybody? I put the brown paper bag and the straightening combs. I was hoping you get a little chuckle out of that. You know I have to be silly. All right. So here we are. We made it. We did another live stream, another long one too. Goodness. At least it's not 3 hours. You're still hanging though, right? All right, everybody. I love you. And I'll see you soon. All right, take care. What's going on? There's a moon. Oh, I saw the really bright moon tonight. I might go out and look. All right. See you. You like that, Molly? I hope you enjoyed it. All right, take care.